Hi, it's Hazel. Welcome to my channel, Hazel Anaka Design. I'm so glad you're here, and I know that I've been neglecting to say that lately. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate your support, your subscriptions, your thumbs up, and probably especially your comments. I should say I'm taping this on November 14th. It will appear on the 15th because I realized that as I've been busy with other things, I really don't have any videos done and scheduled. So gotta address that. One of the videos that will be upcoming probably this weekend will be me finally announcing my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. And of course, I'm past that number and, hopefully will continue growing with your help and support. So yeah, tune in for that. And of course, you have to be a subscriber in order to even think about entering. Okay, so let's get to the job at hand. Now, in my shop on the Maker's Market, and it's always the info is always listed in the description box. District.net/Maker's Market. Anyway, in that shop, I have a number of boho themed kits. So in other words, they've got some fabric, they've got trims, they've got focal points, and so on. Now, I didn't, grab a complete kit and set about to use it. What I have been working on the last few days is using up bits and pieces, odds and ends, scraps, end pieces, blah, blah, blah. Now, you need to hang in till the end so I can show you the ones I've already done. But I do have these few that I did want to work on in this video. May not totally get them done, and as usual, probably not done to the point of absolute completion. So let's see. What I did initially was grab, whether they're, no, I cut these down because they were a little too tall. So I had these kinds of oversized tags, and I ended up cutting this much off because they would have been too tall for a normal journal. And there's no point in doing that work and then finding out that you've wasted materials and time and your stitching is in the wrong place, blah, blah, blah. So I pre-trimmed them. And then, sometimes you get either with, scrapbooking paper or just in bundles, you get other sorts of tags. Now, these are all solids. So I think I picked a few of these where I thought the colors would work with what I intended to do. And then you end up with other stuff. So these are slightly narrower and shorter. There were even a couple of vellum ones. I don't think I did anything with the vellum. And then, some kind of weird stuff like this. Really lightweight. That must have, I don't know where this came from. And then something like that, which of course can be reused if you cover it. Now, it would have to be something fairly opaque to cover that, obviously. Anyway, so that's kind of what I started out with. And then I thought, okay, let me create bases to work on. So I picked kind of a nondescript scrapbooking paper. I thought this is, it's a cute little print. The color could probably be interpreted in a variety of ways. And it's lightweight, so it wasn't going to add a great deal of bulk. Another one that I picked out that was in the running was this one. Again, just to take away that flat, solid base color of the tag. So once I had the papers of the tags covered, I took them to the sewing machine. Well, no, that's not true necessarily. Well, I'll address that again when I show you the samples. Let's do this one. So this is obviously very lightweight. This was a sheer fabric that I just glued down using my Yoo-hoo glue stick. And typically either, clamped it or added a weight. I like to use the sad iron because it's a lot of weight and it's a compact thing. Now, it doesn't necessarily always cover perfectly, but, it's pretty good in a pinch. And as I'm lifting this with my sore left shoulder, I'm thinking I could be doing my exercise with that. Although if I dropped it, I'd probably kill myself. Anyway, glued that down. Once I thought the glue was dried, I stitched around the tag. Now, because I didn't want to do the trimming off the excess, and I didn't want to stitch from the wrong side, because the back side of stitching is never quite as nice as the front side, I was stitching around the front, or I was stitching from the good side. But that meant that sometimes I couldn't see where I was going, and there are some whose stitching may need to be either covered and or redone. Anyway, so sheer piece of fabric with a little bit of a design to it. I found these little scraps. Now this one I sort of opened up the seam to make this a little bit bigger. This, I think I will just, mind you, I should probably, now that I think about it a little further, I think I'm going to remove this inner layer, the lining, to reduce the bulk. Not that it's so thick, but now if I would have thought about this ahead of time, I should have opened up that seam and I would have had a little wider piece to work with. But as it is, I kind of like the way that I thought, oh, a finished edge, that would be kind of nice along the side. And again, when I show you the other samples that I have worked on, you'll see that most of them, or many of them, are not complete as is. This was also a scrap piece, and I just doubled it up so that I have 4 tails instead of 2. By far the most annoying part of this whole process is the gluing. Now, one thing I didn't do, maybe I should grab it, although I had problems with my tacky glue last time, and I struggled with it. This seems to have good hold. It doesn't tend to bleed through, and because it's slow drying, there's a lot of working time. But and here I thought I was so smart, because I like this format with it kind of ready to go, allegedly, because the bottle is always sitting upside down. I added glue from a smaller bottle, but I don't know, well, we'll see. It was very lumpy bumpy last time. Now, because I'm going to be gluing other things on top, I think I'm just going to use Yoo-hoo. Don't know that there's a right or wrong here. And typically I just sort of slather glue onto the piece of fabric, because of course it's going to dry clear, and usually, especially at a base layer, you kind of do want good adhesion. Sometimes that's not as important on a top layer, but if right starting from the bottom, if nothing is really holding very well, I think that would not be a good thing in the long run. Okay, I think that, oh, and one thing I should have pulled out are a number of clamps, because that too is pretty essential. Now I wish I would have looked for my quilter's clamps, because those are actually better in many ways. Okay, let's try, maybe let's use this just for a little assurance that it's going to work. Art glitter glue, out of all of these options, art glitter glue almost seems to be the poorest choice, because you know, it comes out in a very fine bead, and you know, depending how much contact you have with the fabric, it sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I think this maybe will be my better choice. Now I did have a little bit of bleed through on one of the pieces, but I ended up covering it. We've never heard of that solution in this business, have we? Okay, so I'm going to, of course, put it a little thicker along where it's doubled up, where the hem is, and a lighter touch on the thinner parts. I hope that all of you are well. I hope that you're crafting your little hearts out. So I'm not going to be too particular about, you know, does it perfectly line up, because I think it will be more interesting if it doesn't. So that worked fairly well, I'd say. And I think I'll put this about there. Now, again, this is, and I'm going to stop here because I don't have or know what I'm doing next. One thing, and you'll probably hear me say this a few times in upcoming videos, because it's just a little light bulb moment that I had. I have been collecting almost since the beginning. You know, of course, I was binge watching people's videos because I was so mesmerized by this whole concept of, you know, the free style of making books and using fabric and paper and all the things I've always loved. And one of the things, the strategies or the tips that I picked up along the way was to create categories of things that I was collecting for upcoming projects. So I have these project boxes. Well, they're actually bins with covers that came from Dollarama, I think, because I think I paid about $4 each. I'll just set this aside somewhere. You know, look how floppy that is. I mean, obviously those clamps are making the problem worse. Okay, let's maybe move to this one. Anyway, project boxes. So right almost from day one, I have one on tea, like a tea journal, sewing, farm, and some of them are huge, and that's why I end up ending up doing multiple projects. And it occurred to me that I am probably not going to live long enough to do all the projects I want to do. So why am I forcing myself into such a narrow focus? So I think, we'll see if this works, I think what I'm going to start doing is mixing and matching, like making the journals a little more eclectic, in that in a particular journal, there may be a teacup. There may be, well, probably not a farmer, but mixing and matching elements. So I have quite a bit of French ephemera. So who says that I can't, throw everything into the stew? And that way I'm not waiting for this imaginary day where I can use a boho-looking tag in a journal. It doesn't have to be strictly a boho journal. So I don't know. I'm probably, last on the planet to have figured that out. But I think that's going to be my new MO. Okay, this is obviously a big black tag. I used, again, a tattered looking piece of sheer fabric here. Now this is a wired ribbon. This was something that I had fussy cut a long time ago. I did some modification to it. These two end flowers I had actually cut off and then repositioned. You can also see just a little glimmer of the same sort of orange fabric. So I glued this there thinking, well, black is so dramatic and so striking. Why don't I turn this into a belly band on here? Now, part of me thinks, oh, this is so plain along the edge. But then another part of me says, so what? Who cares? And more importantly, if it's a belly band, there will always be something decorative stuck under there. So I'm just going, and I left the wires in the ribbon because I just thought that added a little stability to it. Now, I don't know how, I'm doing a fairly wide bead of glue here because there will be lots of room to access the belly band, and I'm just afraid that with this being as shiny as it is, that it may not want to grab. Okay, I want to do it this way so I can line it up end to end, but I also kind of want it centered, so hopefully, oh, well, that's pretty darn crooked. Okay. Now, I didn't really know what length I should leave this, and if I have to, I don't even think I do have to because I've already put my oh, that's the problem with using more glue is you've got oozing. Now, we know if you're unfamiliar with Fabri-Tac, we know that if you're quick, well, you can smear it. No, it actually rolls off quite nicely as it begins to dry. So, you just kind of have to stay on top of it. Now, I will try to pick some of this up. Isn't it great how I always make these boo-boos just so, and use them as a teaching moment? Now that's starting to look bad. But again, with a little bit of work and this gizmo, I can pick all that up and no one will be the wiser. Now, of course, it's far better not to overdo it, or what I should have done was not put my glue bead so close to the edge, knowing that once I put some pressure on it, it's going to migrate that way on its own. Okay, good as new. Okay, so I'll show you sort of my preliminary plan. Oh, I see I got something on the back here. Gone. Maybe, well, no, I was going to put the iron on it, but I guess not. Okay. Now, I had some lovely pieces of this. This is, of course, I try to get the most for my money. So at some point, no, that's not it. I've got other things off to the side here. This piece would have been bigger, but I cut off the, see, I don't know, I think it was, no, it wasn't that. Anyway, I love the way this picks up that color. But this, because it's so decorative with the metallic stitching and the sequins, it seems like this should be a top layer. So maybe I don't actually have anything to put on this. This is part of a little girl's dress, so maybe that would be okay. And of course, tulle, miserable thing to glue down, as you know, but really adds a nice effect. Too orange. That's introducing a new color, but maybe not. You know what? I might just have to change my plan here. Mind you, I suppose I could power through here. Ooh, not good. And show you that you can make something good with what you have within reach. That was another light bulb moment, because I thought to myself, okay, I didn't want to, you know, like I said, tear into a completed kit that was already packaged and measured, and all the work goes into making kits. And then, you know, that was ready for sale. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to, like you, use up scraps first. So I know that if I would have taken the time, I could have spent half a day looking at ribbon and trims and fabric in all the places that I have fabric stored, in an attempt to find every single option that could go into these tags. And I thought, no, you're not going to do that. Number one, it's not an effective use of time. And number two, sometimes the fewer choices you have, the better. Okay, let's kind of do a dry fit here. So typically I have been adding the tulle near the bottom. However, is that the best way to go? You know, even that looks pretty random. I'll grant you that, but I think it's good. Okay, so I should lie that guy down, let it begin flowing. But my bottom layer is going to be Yoo-hoo. And because this is a pretty large piece, and it could theoretically cover the whole tag, I'm just going to sort of slather the glue everywhere. That doesn't mean I'm covering the entire surface. It just means that there's enough glue there that it should hold at least most of this. I don't know what, okay, that thread is gone. Now this is, like I said, part of the annoyance here is this point, because if I've put as much glue on there as I think I have, naturally it's going to want to go through all those little holes. And again, now I'm sure you probably can't see that, but If this is sort of flapping in the wind here, it doesn't matter because there will be other things put on it. I should punch that hole while I can still see it. There will be other things that will help hold it down. And again, I always think that it's a little bit better when there is some movement. Sorry, I should have cut through the tool as well. That's not working very well. Okay, that's going to need a little more effort on my part. Okay, I want to use this part. This was, I think, part of this was a little sleeve, if I'm not mistaken, part of a sleeve. Let's kind of figure out where to cut this. And again, sometimes a little chewing or tearing or ripping is better than a nice clean cut, in my opinion. Now, because this part is so sheer, I think I'm going to just use the glue stick on the sheer part. And then if I have to add some art glitter glue or Fabri-Tac, then I can on the thicker part where the seam is. I don't know what this dark thing is here. It almost seems like there's a dark thread that got caught in that inside that seam. Clearly that will have to be covered up with a focal point. So maybe I'll just sneak a bit of art glitter glue along here. But you can see that's totally lifting, like I hadn't even put anything on it. Maybe that will hold it in place. Okay, so then I've got that little scrap of this ribbon that, or not ribbon, but lace that matches those things perfectly. So I'll just randomly stick that down. And then this, of course, is the focal point. It will end up covering that little thing that it concerns me. So then it's just a matter of, okay, trying it different ways. Do I like this sort of coming downward, or do I like it going up? I almost think I prefer it going down. So let's try this. Oh, I should have told you last night. Well, I'll just back up a second. The Edmonton Public Library, for I think it would have been must have been before COVID, because so many things came to a screeching halt during COVID. Anyway, they had what they were called their forward-thinking speaker series. And it was sort of a package deal, and you could buy the whole bundle, and then over the course of several months, see, I don't know what you can see here, but I'm just going to sort of slather on the glue, thicker where there's, something that's going to maybe be harder to hold down and or easier to disguise from the other side. Anyway, so my daughter and I, for I don't know, couple or 3 years maybe, subscribed to it, and it was absolutely awesome. Incredible speakers from, different, from Canada and the US, and different subject matter and so on. Somehow, it seems that, I don't know, whatever. I guess I shouldn't be wasting time talking about what's going on or not going on in the back, at the library level. Anyway, last night the speaker was Margaret Atwood. Now, if you're Canadian, obviously you know the name. If you know The Handmaid's Tale, you know the name. She, I guess Hillary Googled her. She's 84 years old. She was in Edmonton yesterday, and we went to see it. It was a sold-out house at the Jubilee Auditorium, which is a very comfortable venue. And we had really good seats on the floor. The woman is so sharp and kind of reminds me of an iceberg, where whatever she's saying or doing, or the visible part of her is just a fraction of the depth involved with her. And she is hilarious and so darn witty. Anyway, we were trying to remember who we had last seen there and so on. And Hillary thought, it was probably Joyce Carol Oates, an American author, very prolific, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she says, remember how she came on stage carrying her little purse with her? Son of a gun. Margaret Atwood gets introduced, pretty old, pretty frail. She comes out on stage carrying her little purse with her. And of course, sitting in an armchair, and the person who was interviewing her sat in a facing chair. Anyway, it was an incredible evening, and I'm so glad I saw her. Okay. So I'll just review. I'll probably take this off by now. Get rid of these. Okay, so this is what we did today, but let me show you what I did prior to this. The very first one, I believe, or I'll save that for the last because it's probably the most finished of all. I love this fabric so much. Now, do I have a scrap to show you? So there's this very vibrant embroidery that's on there, but this, the background is very sheer, and it glues down so beautifully, and it looks, in my opinion, so good. But this is where my stitching veered off because I couldn't see where I was going. So I'm going to have to do something about that. Maybe I'll add a second row of stitching. I honestly don't think that I would add much to this. I have to do the whole, add a ribbon or a fiber of some sort there. But I love this. Love it. Okay. This is obviously in the early stages of completion. This was part of a hem off something or other, so it was a double thickness, and so I didn't have a problem with the glue there. Now this hot fuchsia color, don't know if I have a piece of it here, was actually attached to this teal green thing. So and the braid, of course, was part of the hem detail. This green tag sheer fabric there, I decided that I'm going to start using some of the beautiful, where are they? I guess I'm not going to take the time to find them. Beautiful braided trims. And because many of the pieces are maybe a foot long or even less, I'm I'm still doling them out in little bits and pieces. I used navy tulle against the green because I thought that looked pretty darn good. And then this obviously picks up that color. And then I used this. Now, what you don't know is that, okay, it was the same as this, but I had glue stains bleeding all the way through. So this is a piece that I used, like the same stuff that I used here. I had a scrap, a thin little scrap, and it just goes to show, don't throw anything away. I use that to hide the glue stains. And I'm swearing you guys to secrecy. Don't tell anybody. This was a blue tag. I used this sheer fabric and I kind of bunched it a bit. And then I turned this. I, again, cut a small piece of this trim. Oh, and you know how quite often this trim, let me show you a piece. Okay, something like this. It will have just these little, I don't know, seam allowance, I guess. And I'm thinking, well, that could be an issue putting things in and out of this belly band. So what I did was I backed it on this awful stuff here. So that color, it's not hurting, or maybe it's enhancing somehow that, but it also serves the purpose of now things can go in and out without getting caught on anything. And in a case like this, I virtually 9 out of 10 times will use Fabri-Tac to hold it down, especially if there's any thickness to it. Did I glue that on crooked? Boy, it almost looks like it. Let me pull out my micrometer and check that. Anyway, I thought that was really pretty attractive as well. So should something be put there or not in the hole? I don't know. It would interfere with things going in, I think so. This, finally I thought to myself, okay, well, why aren't you using any book page? So I had a piece of this lace. Now, this was one of those I think this style is called filigree, or no, fillet type lace. And I had used it for avocado dyeing. I loved how it turned out, so I just took it. Anyway, I did use some vintage book page and some vintage music, and then glued this beautiful thing on top, and love how this has turned out. Again, I need to let me remind myself to punch those later. And again, you can see that I'm using the same background paper over and over again. This, again, I had a scrap piece of that lace. Did I use the whole thing? No, I didn't, because there's the last of it there. So, I don't know, crazy. Same fabric, this at the bottom. Love how that is kind of translucent, and then had a piece of lace. Now you can see, again, I did a little bit of ruffling there. This obviously isn't holding down very well, even though I had it glued and under a weight. Better add a little more here. Again, if every single speck of it is not glued down, I sort of like that. You know, like this is sort of free-flowing here. I did this one as well because I had quite a bit of this trim, and I thought to myself, are you going to cut that off, or are you going to wrap it around and create a pocket? Now, it's deliberately, I sort of hacked away at that just to make it a little more interesting and to avoid that hole there. And this needed quite a bit. This is glued down flat. This grabbed pretty well, but I did have clamps on it for a long time because I wanted to make sure that that really held. And anyway, I like that one a lot too. And then the finale that maybe demonstrates how all of these, or how all of these could turn out, is this one. So done on black, I used some sort of almost like tulle at the back, covered most of the tag. I had a bit of silver. Maybe if I lift this up, you can see. I had some purple tulle. I had, okay, what is this? Oh, that's part of the purple tulle. But I had this black lace here as well. Oh, that's lifting too. I think I better add some of this so it holds a wee bit better than that. Okay, then I had mauve tulle, which is this. I had this from a garment that I had at one point. I had this beaded trim, so the top of it is like seam binding, and these beads had been hand sewed on to make like a trim. Not like a trim, a trim. So you can see beads all along there. And then I had two different colors of these lovely flowers. Oh, because that was kind of unsightly, just with that trim, I covered that with just a scrap of sheer fabric. So you can see that this has a lot going on and multi-layers and a combination of colors. But is that not something that, you know, would just look great in any kind of a journal? You know, assuming that the colors worked. So that, my lovelies, is that. Not too darn bad, I would say. And most of them are well on their way to completion, or perhaps are complete and just maybe need, you know, this needs the hole punched and maybe a sentiment right there. You know, again, it's artist's decision as to when you believe, when I believe that they are finished. So I hope this encourages you to look into your own stash, see what you have. If you want to go more boho, more eclectic, more frilly-dilly, you know, there are people like me that do have pre-curated bundles in different colorways that would provide enough material that you could do a whole series of projects and have them all, you know, be coordinated and cohesive. If you're dealing with sheer fabric and you end up with something like this, because maybe you were attempting to straighten something out, you're not throwing it away. I mean, it's very annoying to handle because it's kind of, you know, there's no end to the threads, but that's exactly the sort of thing that's going to add that extra dimension to whatever it is you're working on. Look at that. I could add these two things here and I wouldn't have to touch them again. Now this I don't really like. This was an ombre type thing, and I do love the purple orange, not purple, pink orange combo because I think to me it just speaks East Indian. And those people are not afraid of color. You know, so at this point I could add, or maybe I want these little fringes to be, you know, partly covering that braid and that teal part. Or maybe I have to turn this upside down so that dangly, this part that is unruly would be dangling down. Or maybe I arrange it so it comes off, whoops, comes off the side. You know, so you do have to play around a bit to figure out which is most pleasing or which hides something or takes you closer to your vision. Anyway, guys, I'm going to stop there. I have no idea how long. Oh, dear, 45 minutes. Anyway, thank you. I hope that this has provided some inspiration and will help you think outside the box and look at some of the things in your stash that maybe you have been stymied by or have been throwing away or whatever. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.